Good afternoon. Welcome to the Adaptive Payments, Changing How We Pay, Past, Present, and Future. My name is Musab At-Taras, and I'm a director in the engineering organization. So my team actually is the team that has built Adaptive Payments. With me today is Khurram Khan, who's our senior product manager for Adaptive Payments. And he and I are going to kind of tag team on the presentation, as well as a couple of guests who are going to do some demos for us. We have a lot of people from the Adaptive Payments team actually here in the room. We have Suresh, our development manager, one of the development managers, as well as a bunch of people on the wall as well wearing black shirts. So after this, if you guys want to talk to them, feel free. And so before we get started, let me ask, how many people actually were here last year? Okay, great. So, and how many people have actually seen or know at least something about Adaptive Payments? Okay, good number. So the beginning part of the presentation is really just going to be talking about why did we build Adaptive Payments, what functionality comes with it, and then we're going to start getting into what did we just launch, what's new in Adaptive Payments, as well as a discussion on where it's going to go. And so let's just dive right in. So I already covered the agenda. You know, when we started looking at payments, PayPal had already obviously done payments. We've been doing payments for the last 10 years in a variety of different ways. And this is one of the key reasons why we got into payments. When you start looking at e-commerce transactions, they can be pretty complicated. You want to do a credit card transaction, there is a certain amount of overhead that you actually have to do. And so it becomes a little bit prohibitive for everyone to play in that space. And so we came in and we tried to basically make it so that payments was not just limited to a certain type of provider, be it a merchant, be it anyone else. We wanted to lower essentially the barrier to entry. And so we looked at the PayPal, the payment systems. We saw that they were closed. A lot of times they're regional, a little bit cumbersome. And so we felt like there was something that we could do in that space. And so that's essentially what the goal of PayPal has been. And additionally, with PayPal X, the platform, we've also wanted to make that even more available to the developer, to the guy who's just saying, I have a really good idea. I need to make money. I have all of these things that I want to build. The last thing I want to worry about is the payments portion. So we wanted to make an API which actually facilitated whatever type of payment transaction they wanted. And you'll see some of that today. So what do we give you with Adaptive Payments? You're going to see a bunch of different things. I'm going to talk about a lot of different terms. I'll talk about send money. I'll talk about implicit send money. I'll talk about pre-approved payments, and I'll talk about parallel, and I'll talk about split. Now, the one thing to know with all of these are what we've bucketed the payment types to be. But that's based on the functionality of one API, an API we call Pay. And so it gives you all these money movement capabilities all within one API. And so we'll talk about it. But before I get into it, jumping over to the right side, when we started building it, we said, what are people going to do with Adaptive Payments? What are all the different possibilities? We know we won't be able to figure out what everyone plans on doing it with it. But what we did say is, if we can solve all these use cases on the right with the service that we've built, then we think we've at least got the basics so that you guys can come in, take a look at it, figure out how it applies to your particular use case, and then see where we go from there. And so it's an evolution of sorts. And so as we get into it, you're going to see that, well, the first thing for any payment service, for any API, you must be able to do a simple send money. I must be able to write an application which sends money from person A to person B. That's table stakes. And that's included in Adaptive Payments. Before I dive into all the different types of money movements, there's this slide that I really like to go over. It will help essentially decipher some of the upcoming slides. So with any payment transaction, there's a person sending, at least one sender, and there's a person receiving. So instead of calling them buyer and seller, that's too old school. That's what a merchant transaction is going to be. No, it's more sender, receiver. It does not have to actually be a merchant transaction. But those aren't the only parties involved in this in Adaptive Payments. There's also an API caller. Now, the API caller, you might say, well, you know what, in a traditional merchant situation, that's usually the receiver. The receiver makes the API call, the sender comes in, approves the payment, and the money goes to the receiver. Well, you're right, that is the way it would be traditionally, but we're not limiting that. And you're going to see a few use cases where the API caller can actually be the sender of money. I can make an API call and send money out of my account. I can also be traditional merchant relationship. I'm the receiver. I make an API call, and the money moves into my account. Or I could be a third party. I could actually facilitate the transaction, and I may not be either the sender or this receiver. So all of these are possible, but I just wanted to get the terminology and the nomenclature out of the way. So jumping to send money, obviously with PayPal, we support, we're available in 190 countries, support 24 different currencies, and so we facilitate essentially the send money transaction between people potentially in different countries, using different currencies, et cetera. But this is table stakes for us. This is what we have to do at the bare minimum. And so obviously we support send money. You heard me talk about implicit send money. Implicit send money, the way we call it is when an API caller actually makes an API call, a pay call, to send money out of their account. That money can go to one person, or in one API call, we can send it to 5, 6, 10 different receivers. And that's what you see over here. The main thing to call out is the actual sender and the API caller are one and the same. And that's why we call it implicit send money. The approval for the payment is implicit because you're the one making the API call. So basically it's pre-authorized. The money moves instantly when you make this API call. You know, in addition to moving money, the experience of moving money needs a little bit of help as well. If you are used to PayPal transactions being, I want someone to make a payment, they're redirected to PayPal, they approve the payment, and then they come back to my site. We're changing that a little bit. One example of the way we're changing it is using pre-approvals. When you want to build a long-term payment relationship with someone, why should every time they want to make a payment, why should they have to go to PayPal? Why, they trust you, they're doing business with you. Why is it every time they have to go to PayPal? With pre-approved payments, we've actually helped that along. We've actually made it so that the first time they come through, you can actually ask for a pre-approval and say, hey, we've known each other. I want to be able to process transactions much quicker for you. And so once they agree to a pre-approval, from then on, they stay on your site. And every call that you make, you're moving money out of their account. Now, obviously, with that comes a lot of responsibility and a lot of expectations, and we can talk a little bit about those offline. Parallel payments. One of the key things Adaptive Payments really has tried to do was facilitate it so that when you make a call, we don't want you to make 3 calls in this particular case. We want you to give us one API call. You tell us where you want the money to go. And we've essentially done that with parallel payments. The key thing, if there's one thing that you walk away with this slide from, look at the lines of visibility. All the arrows are lines of visibility. The sender of that money sees 3 different transactions coming from their account. 3 different transactions, and they can interact with those transactions separately at that point. So think of a marketplace like eBay, where you're buying 3 things from 3 different sellers. At the end of the transaction, once it completes, if there's a seller that wants to refund you the money because the product was late or refund partially, you can interact with those 3 transactions separately. This is parallel payments. Chain payments. Chain payments is where it gets a little bit interesting. I can't tell you how many times people have come up to us and said, I want to be able to accept payments. I want to be able to facilitate transactions, but I'm the developer. I'm the entrepreneur. I want to be able to take commission. I want to be able to monetize that transaction. Well, we think with chain payments, we've given you a way to do that. We allow you essentially to take money from a sender, have it go to a primary receiver, and then from that primary receiver, it can go to 1, 2, 3, up to 10 different secondary receivers. Remember how we talked about the arrows show lines of visibility? Well, in this case, if you're the primary receiver, you're the only one who sees all the different legs of the transaction. You see the money coming in from the sender, and you see it where it's going out. As far as the sender of the money is concerned, they see money going to one entity. That's the entity they trust. That's the entity they dealt with. On the back end, what your relationship is with all the different providers that you have, that's your business as well. And only the primary receiver knows that. There are a lot of really interesting things with chain payments that you can do. And when you think about the fact that as an API caller, you don't necessarily have to be the primary receiver. You could be a secondary receiver and still facilitate that transaction. So it definitely leaves a lot of room open as far as opportunity. So we get a lot of questions. Well, can I combine pre-approval and chain payments, or pre-approval and parallel payments? And the answer is yes. The approval is just the way and how the money is actually approved. The way the money actually moves is separate. We actually want you to combine them. We think it's great. We think for particular use cases it's going to be really, really good. So definitely being able to combine the approval portion and the money movement portion is easy enough. And so you can do that with both parallel and chained. So just in summary, we talked about send money. Works for a lot of different use cases. We talked about implicit send money. You'd be amazed how many people have already started using adaptive payments for implicit send money. Some really interesting use cases that probably Khurram will go over as well to tell you about how other people are using it for their use cases. You get pre-approved payments as well as you get parallel and chain payments. All right, so this pretty much brings you up to speed with where adaptive payments has been. And so if you've seen adaptive payments before, you're probably familiar with all the things that I just talked about. In addition to those, we have a few things that we're announcing, that we're just launching. One of them has been guest payments. So a lot of the people who've come to use adaptive payments from the beginning have said, hey, I really love the fact that you guys have done this for me. But, not all of my customers know PayPal. As they do more and more transactions, they're probably going to create an account. But I want them to be able to come to my site with the intention of making a payment. And when they go to PayPal, I want them to be able to pay even without a PayPal account. So with guest payments, we've created that concept. We've created the ability to do that. And so now when your users are using adaptive payments, they'll have an option of actually paying with a credit card without having to create a PayPal account. So heard you guys loud and clear on that. Excuse me. And this one's my favorite. So, in the last year, I've talked to a lot of different developers, and I've talked to them about chain payments. And when I do, as they start understanding what chain payments are, I've gotten this question a couple times. Well, I'm actually fine with being the primary receiver. Let the money come in. But that second leg, I don't want to execute that second leg right away. You guys are having me do it right away. And so we changed that. We're now allowing you to actually specify, I want to delay that second leg. That secondary receiver needs to do something before I send that second leg. So we're actually allowing you for up to 90 days to say, hold that transaction. I'll tell you when to move it. So if you're finding, for example, that within the first 24 hours, people are asking for a refund for digital goods or digital content, and you want to hold that just to make sure that you're reducing your chargebacks and your refunds, you can do that with this. Embedded payments. You guys saw this on the main stage. This is part of the what we're calling embedded payments. It gives you this in-context experience with your PayPal checkout. And Khurram will actually show, some of our demos actually show it. But it basically is a new interaction model that we're introducing. I don't want to say gone are the days where you're going to redirect someone to PayPal, but we now have given you another option. And an option that we think is actually a little bit better. And we're looking for your feedback. When someone's on your site and you want them to stay within the context of what they're actually doing, we want to be able to give you the ability to pop up a mini browser, have them log into PayPal, approve the payment, and what would be even better? For them to just check a button to say, you know what, I pre-approve you for all future transactions. We'll do that within the context of a mini browser. That browser disappears. They're back in the context of what they were doing. We think it's a less jarring experience, and we think that it does it while allowing people to feel that comfort of they're on PayPal.com, they're approving the payment, and then they're back doing what you actually expected them to do. So we're launching this now. If you actually have an adaptive payments integration, this is not going to cause you to change any of your API calls. It's just a change in your user experience, and we think it should be pretty easy. Oh, and by the way, you saw that on the main stage, right? I mean, he literally cut and pasted the code that actually enabled this. So, usually at this point, people have a lot of thoughts going through their mind. How can I use it? I'm sure you guys all have your own specific use cases going through your mind. But just a few really, really simple examples. So don't read too much into these examples. I'm not telling anyone to go out and create a social networking P2P site. I'm sure it's already been done before. But these are just some examples to say, hey, you know what? Here's something you could do. So first example, obviously, you want to facilitate payments on a social networking site. You want to be able to put a little Facebook application where someone comes in and says, yeah, you know what? I want to pay X through this little Facebook application. Yeah, you can do it. That's easy enough. Gaming. Things get pretty interesting with gaming, and so you've seen a lot of the digital goods demos and things like that. With gaming, and you combine that with microtransaction pricing, you can have a pretty cool thing that you can do. You can create a game, sell points, take 25-cent transactions, all of that as well through the same solution. But let's take it up a notch. Let's say you want to build a gaming platform. Let's say you know a lot of gamers who are willing to build games, and you can provide that gaming platform for them where they can come host their game, people can play it, and you can keep one currency across all of them. Well, you know what? That's pretty cool. You can do it, and you can use chain payments to actually monetize. So every time someone is checking out and buying 1,000 points, you're actually getting a cut of that transaction. Payouts and disbursements. So this is an implicit send money use case. And I can't tell you how many people that we have who are like, you know what, I got a virtual workforce. I've got people in a virtual workforce who work all over the world. I want to be able at the end of the week to make an API call and pay them. And so we've actually got a lot of people doing that. And you can do that with parallel payments, combining that with implicit. This one is kind of one of my favorites because at the time when we built this, we still hadn't launched adaptive payments. We wanted to kind of vet it out with a few people. So we got some interns from Carnegie Mellon. We gave them an early version of the code and said, hey, you know what? Why don't you guys take an open source shopping cart, create an affiliate program, make it so that when someone actually uses the shopping cart, they can have affiliates sign up, and every time someone refers a buyer to their site, instantly with every checkout, the referrer is actually getting a fee. And so they did that. They actually used, I think it was called Dash Commerce. They actually built it into Dash Commerce, and I think we still have the open source code. I think we open sourced the code as well for this. Rent payments. So I actually know a coworker who was like, you know what, I want to be able to pay my rent using PayPal. I just want to set it up. I want to just set it up, have it go out every single month. Why can't I do it? Well, you know what, you can. If someone wants to build a platform for people to advertise real estate for rent, as well as for people to rent and pay their rent online, they could easily do it, and they can use chain payments to actually monetize it. So, you know, this is really not meant to be a coding session, but you'll be surprised how easy the API call is. It's pretty simple. You have your headers, and then when you start looking at what the actual values that we require are, I think you'll find that it's pretty reasonable. And especially if you're integrating with name value pairs, if you or people that you've done are used to integrating APIs, I think it'll be pretty easy. A lot of the guys that we've talked to, people like Latte, have come to us and said, hey, you know what, it literally took us a couple of days, a day or 2 days at most, to do. So one of the last things I want to cover is what is the interaction model. So I mentioned API calls, and I also mentioned web approval flows. So how does it kind of all fit together? Let me walk you through an example, and I think it'll be a little bit clearer as to how it goes. So let's go back to our rental application. Let's say someone wants to pay their rent online. So they go to the rental app, and they say, it's time for me to pay my rent. I want to pay $1,000. So you, as the rental application, would make an API call to PayPal and say, such and such a person wants to make a payment of $1,000, and you give us in the request, you tell us how much money and who it's going to. Once that happens, we send you back a pay key identifying, hey, you know what, great, we recognize this is a transaction you want to do. Here's a pay key, it uniquely identifies it. Once that happens, that's essentially the payment instructions. Once that happens, the person sending the money needs to approve. And so I'm going to tell you exactly how they would approve it, but I want you to think about the case where they already have a pre-approval. If they already have a pre-approval with you, those two yellow arrows moved money. There's no web approval required. The money would have moved. What I'm showing you is an example where you don't have a pre-approval. So now they need to approve the payment. So what do? You redirect them to PayPal.com. You pass in the pay key and say, hey, that person I told you was going to come pay $1,000, well, they're now on your website. We show them a login flow. They log in. They review their payment. Yep, want to pay $1,000 to my landlord. Once they do that, we move money. Money moves to the landlord's account, and if you're doing a chain payment, in that one transaction, it goes as well to the secondary receivers as well. Once that's done, we send them back to your website. Well, you know what? If this were an in-context experience, instead of a redirect, there would have been an in-context mini browser. They would have logged in. They would have approved the payment. The window would disappear. They'd be back in the context of what you wanted them to do. And at that point, the transaction's done. You get your notifications. So we send you instant payment notifications, as well as email identifying the payment has actually gone through. And that's it. Now, last slide for me is just to let you know that we support this API in a variety of different protocols. We've created a lot of different SDKs. And so if you go to x.com, you can take a look at what Adaptive Payments has and download our latest SDKs for your favorite programming language. With that, I'd like to ask Khurram Khan to join us.
Thank you very much, Musab. All right. So, the Adaptive Payment APIs was launched last year. It's been there for about more than a year now. And, we are constantly, launching more and more new enhanced features. And we keep saying that, it's highly configurable, it's very flexible, it's robust APIs. But sometimes, we ask among ourselves, is it really, flexible as we claim it? Is it really, configurable as we claim it? So one of the things that we started to think about is that how about, have this adaptive payment framework, used by some of the internal products that we have within PayPal. So one of the things what we did was, how are we powering internal innovations within PayPal? You guys saw a lot of slides and demos today on the main stage. Well, guess what? Most of those demos that you saw on the main stage today, they are using adaptive payments. And that would be one of the best ways you can actually validate your product. It's how well it's consumed internally. So, mobile check capture. How many of you guys have an iPhone client installed on your iPhone, the PayPal client? Okay. So for those who don't, you guys should probably get the latest client installed. Well, essentially what you can do is, take an image of the check, and then that gets deposited in your PayPal account. Now, image capture or the mobile check capture has been out there for a certain institution. So why is it new for PayPal? Well, when you actually take an image of this check, you get a deposit to your PayPal account. And then now you're agnostic of your funding or your banks, because you can actually take that money from your PayPal balance and push it to any bank you want. And this way, you're not really relying on a certain financial institute that enables the check capture capability. And that uses implicit payments within the Adaptive Payment product suite as a solution. Well, let's talk about Mobile Payment Library. MPL, we kind of launched earlier this year, and we may have a second version out. It actually allows you to utilize all adaptive payment capabilities. So you might be a mobile app developer. You might want to do chain payments through a mobile phone. Go and play around with our mobile payment libraries. You have this code that gets into the application on the mobile phone, and then all you got to do is use the same APIs to facilitate that payment, whether it's be chain payment or pre-approved payment or even parallel. Let's talk about another use case. How about PayPal apps? Some of you guys must have seen that in the main stage today. And there was also another session today at 1 o'clock about PayPal apps. How are we helping enable PayPal apps? Well, most of the apps that are launching within the PayPal apps platform will be utilizing adaptive payments as a solution, for pre-approved payments, parallel, chained, or simple payments. Another example is business payments. You guys heard about the new pricing today. Someone announced that as a part of the keynote, 50 cents. Well, guess what? You can actually make utilize those pricings while using adaptive payments features and capabilities. You can send the user through the same flow and then have take the fruits of the new business payment pricing, which is 50 cents. And what about financial innovation? You guys must have heard the FI product, Discover, was announced today, and the underlying framework, yet again, has been adaptive payments, which enables you to make multiple payments to multiple recipients, as well as do an implicit payment internally. So this essentially what it did was this FI product that was built on top of the adaptive payment feature set was rolled out to different partners. And guess what we have? We have banking institutes. We have companies that deal with rewards and points. We have S1, Bank of Michigan. All these guys are using the FI product, which is already live right now, and you guys can play around with it. But behind the scene, the message that I want to give is, this was a true test of our product internally, how flexible it is, how configurable it is. And I'm not just saying that, we have reached our goal. No. The whole reason why we are here is to constantly evolve, right? We want to crank those features out at a fast pace, but we would rely on you guys to give us constant feedbacks as to what you're looking at. Let's talk about some of the things that are powered today by adaptive payment. As Musab mentioned, last year when we launched adaptive payment, we said, hey, these are a bunch of APIs. They're highly configurable. We're going to give it in your hands, and you guys go and do what you can in terms of innovation. Well, guess what? You guys saw a kiosk downstairs called Bling Nation. Now, these guys were, a bunch of smart people within Palo Alto trying to think that, hey, you know what? We have this entire thing figured out. We have RFIDs, which is one of the best technologies out there, but how do we solve the payment issue? And that's where they started looking at adaptive payments. So I'm proud to say that Bling Nation uses adaptive payments. So they're using the pre-approved capabilities. So actually what you do is you actually pre-approve Bling Nation to charge on your behalf. And then once you get the Bling tag, all you got to do is, just tap it into the point of sale machine. So behind the scene, what's happening is, if it's chain payments, or even if they wanted to change their business model to do more parallel payments, that has been enabled. So today, whenever I don't know if everybody should have a Bling tag, right? If somebody did not get it, let me know right after the session. We can hook you up with one. But this is something that we did not really think about in year one. We were thinking about developers, opening marketplaces, app stores, but we were not thinking that maybe it's going to be enabled on the device, like like a RFID chip. But Bling Nation made it happen. What about Fourth Wall? You guys saw a big stage, the demo on the big stage, and some of you who may have missed it, we have a demo for you right after our session. Payments through a set-top box or a device. Set-top box is one of the most dumbest machine out there. It's not smart and intelligent enough, right? But, companies like Fourth Wall made it possible for that dumb machine to be intelligent enough to start accepting payments. And you guys will see that as a part of the demo today. Again, they use pre-approved payments and simple payments as a solution. What about RIM? The RIM app world that you guys, I don't know how many RIM users are here in the room, but essentially when you go to the app world of RIM and you go through the entire payment experience and you choose PayPal as an option, well, guess what? Behind the scene, they're using adaptive payments pre-approved payment, and they're using Simple Send Money to move the money between the consumer's account and the merchant's account, or in this case, the developer. Green Dot. You guys been hearing about Green Dot, right? Very interesting use case. When we launched this last year, we had no idea. But guess what? Green Dot is one of the companies that is actually moving the most amount of volume to our systems. Essentially, what you do is you actually go in there, buy the card, get into your PayPal account, and make the payments. I'm getting flashed from my folks about the time's almost up, but there are many, many more use cases, guys. It's not the end of the world. And from here, where do we go? What's the future like? Well, the future is you guys. As long as we are ready to innovate and put up those features as a rapid pace, as I mentioned, as long as you guys are willing to push the envelope, right? So you guys have to constantly give us feedback, and if you're successful, you're successful. And to be honest, if you're successful, we are successful. That's how I see it, right? Every time when I go home, when I drive home, and if I have my GPS turned on, I kind of think that, should I actually have the good food that my wife cooked for me in the dinner, or should I just order a pizza? I don't know, But when I think about that use case, why is it not possible for me to just use my GPS to order the pizza, just, drive into the driveway, pick up the pizza, it's ready, waiting for me, it's already paid off, go to my house, turn on the TV, click with a single click, I get my movie downloaded to me, and there you go. Consistent experience. And this is something that you guys can think about. How you enable this through the devices, how do you enable through, set-top boxes. What about vending machine? That's a dumb machine too. But maybe, one of you guys can actually create an application to enable payments through vending machine. Well, with that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to invite Daryl to come up on the stage. He is from Connection Point, and he's going to walk you through a quick demo.
Thanks, Herm. So let's get this up. Okay, so I'm Daryl Hatton. I'm founder and CEO of Connection Point. We're the makers of Fundraiser. Fundraiser is a social fundraising application that combines the viral sharing capabilities of social networks like Facebook and Twitter with the powerful person-to-person payment capabilities of PayPal to make it easy for anyone to raise money for the causes that they care about. So, give you an example of that kind of cause. Communities get together sometimes and help each other out, raise money for someone who's sick or someone who's had a tragedy, their house burned down, that kind of thing. How many people here are parents? You're raising money all the time for the kids' sport team because they want to go on a road show. You're raising money because they need new uniforms for the band. Somebody wants to do an exchange trip, that kind of thing. This helps make those available as well as other more traditional types of fundraising, nonprofits and political. So, Fundraiser is an application that makes it easy to take that viral sharing of social networking and apply it to fundraising for personal causes. This is an example of Fundraiser running on Facebook, runs on other social networks as well. If you hit this page, your job when you get here is simply create a fundraiser right now. Rather than get long into that for a demo, I've got one already built down here. So imagine that Steve Irving is a fellow we know has cancer. And his insurance doesn't cover the payments for his drugs that he needs all the time. So the community is going to get together and help him raise money for this. So I'll show you what this looks like. We've created a campaign for him. Now, we'll load. So this is our campaign designer. It makes it very, very simple for someone with no training at all to start out and set up a campaign. Now, if you notice up in here, we've got your PayPal account email. First thing we do is get who's going to get the money. We put their account email in here. Now we're using the Adaptive Payment Suite and specifically the Chained Payment API to move money from the donor to the recipient brokered by us. So the money flows directly through there. It has some real benefits. First off, traditional credit card processing systems really don't work for this kind of thing. We're doing a redirect there, and we're, without a whole bunch of overhead, becoming a broker. Second thing is, because the payment is going directly to the recipient, Fundraiser is not responsible if there's a refund. I don't have to worry about chargebacks. It's the responsibility of the person receiving the donations if somebody complains. But so this designer goes in here. We could very quickly make some changes to it. I just want to show you that it's kind of a live editor. We can set some text to describe to our community what the campaign is all about. We can go in and maybe change its color a little, or we could go and pick an image that we want to show, upload it from our local machine. Kind of key that's important as well is that we can go and take a YouTube video and attach it to the campaign so that when this campaign is shared, I can have maybe a personal appeal from me saying, hey, this is my buddy Steve, help us out. How many people here use Facebook? Okay. So different from most tools, instead of publishing this campaign out to a website that you have to drive people to, we publish it. When I hit update and share here, this gets written out to my wall on Facebook. So let's say demo for Innovate, just so that nobody actually donates to it while we're here. But I'm going to go and do a publish. Okay, now that's been published out to my wall. If I go over here, you'll see my home page. And when I click on it, that campaign has showed up at the top. It's that little thumbnail. Looks like a video clip. Now, it showed up here, and if you and I were friends, it's also showed up in the video feed, in the news feed for my friends. What we do that's different is instead of when you click on this, when your friends click on this, instead of running a video clip, it runs our application. I had to make sure that Mark Zuckerberg wasn't going to go and decide that this wasn't a good thing after all. So we talked to him at F8. But this is actually an application that's running. So I can see people who've donated, I can interact with the campaign a little, and I can actually see the video clip that might be running there. But again, this has been distributed out to all of my friends, all 582 of them, and it shows up in their news feed. Now, important point is I can make a payment right from here with Give, but I want to show you one more thing first. We also create an activity page, looks like this, where we combine all the social interaction for that campaign in one spot. Doesn't matter whether somebody's interacted with it on Twitter or through a website or a blog or in the social network. When you're doing payment processing, one of the things to do is to cut the number of clicks between when you decide to donate and when you actually make the donation. So when I hit that Give button, only thing they have to do is show accept terms of service. And if you remember, this is a personal payment app, so I'm showing, in this case, it's a little weird, I'm paying me for the help to Steve Irvin Cancer. But when I click here, we don't want to go anywhere. We're using the new embedded payments experience of the Adaptive API suite, and we're logging you in right there. You notice Facebook is still in the background. I haven't felt like I've left. It's not anywhere near as jarring. So when I go to log in, as you mentioned before, if this is live, by the way, so Osama would be happy with this. But the thing that will happen is if somebody's logged in on here before, then we go straight into a confirmed payment screen, which is going to really increase the flexibility. But I'm showing here my banking account. I'm going to make this payment. Hopefully we got enough money today. And this payment will, 3, 2, 1, go. Okay. Now you notice that the notification, that something happened in the background. We've actually received a notification from PayPal, and we've been able to query status. We know that this payment is complete. So when this screen closes up, we bring up a sharing dialog. The key thing about what we do is we help people share. Not only have they donated, but we want them to tell people that they've shared. So imagine if this was another donor, and they've come to make a donation, and now they say, please help Steve. And that has gone out to their Facebook wall and their news feed. This wasn't possible without adaptive payments. It's had some significant benefit for us. First off, we've been able to run in multiple countries around the world. Almost instantly, we had customers in the UK, in Europe, Canada, the US, Australia, New Zealand, even Israel, and coming soon, hopefully, some South American countries. Second thing is it doesn't take long to do. This API has only been active a couple of days, and the guys only took a couple of days to implement it. So it's quick and easy to get this kind of payment experience. So the only call to action I have, go to fundraiser.com, F-U-N-D, I'm going to be Canadian, R-A-Z-R.com, or facebook.com fundraiser, or PayPal on the fundraising site, and you'll see this app. Click on it, try it, get to see what adaptive payments feels like for your customer. Thanks.
With that, I'd like to welcome Patrick from Fourth Wall to come up on the stage. You can use this mic if you want, Patrick. Yep.
Hi, everybody. I'm Patrick Peters from Fourth Wall Media. What we're going to be looking at is over here. How many people saw the keynote this morning? Okay. So what I'm going to show you is a canned version of that. When we did that, it was live. We actually had a real set-top box, and we had a fake cable head end that ported video out to it. There we go. Okay, so PayPal's adaptive payment was really important to this process for a couple of reasons. One of those was technological. I needed to be able to distribute payments to a bunch of people for a bunch of different reasons, right? And the second was, it was all business driven. In the television business, there are a lot of owners of these things. So there's a distributor, like Time Warner Cable, who distributes this out, and they own the set-top box, and they own the content in that set-top box. There's a program owner, TNT or a Turner or a CNN or anyone else. There's an inventory owner. I have some local, I have some national. Then there are people like us who are vendors or API callers in this world, right? So what we've built within that set-top box, that was our cleverness, was, as you said, they're less than the best devices. That was, well, I have said what you said, and it wound up in the press, and that wasn't good. Anyway, so they're very difficult to work within, and we have done that for a long time. However, you still couldn't make payments on TV, and we needed to figure that out because people still spend more time in front of the TV than any other screen, but you can't make a transaction. So what we developed was a way to insert into a broadcast stream a piece of data that winds up looking like this box that you see popping up, right? And the tech that is drawn by the set-top box, and up it pops whenever we determine. It can be automated, or a producer can say, insert now. So this could happen during a live sporting event. It can happen during, I'm sorry, this is playing auto, or during a 30-second spot, or a long-form ShamWow infomercial, or during an episode of Friends. And what it allows to happen is for a user to say, yes, I want to buy that. And right now we sync the MAC address of that set-top box with the PayPal account. Money comes in, and then through adaptive payments, it gets redistributed to all the appropriate people, to the inventory owners, the programmers, the vendors, the distributors. That had to happen for all the players in our business to accept a payment method. For 20 years, they've been trying to do this on their own. They've been trying to create their own method of doing this. They just couldn't get it done. And we finally have convinced them that PayPal should be their e-wallet. We're working on a day-to-day basis to convince them further. We want to get this out probably first quarter of this year. We'll make some announcements later in November in New York about where exactly this is going to go. And I have to say to your team and to everybody at PayPal, this development was the easiest development work we did that we have done in 10 years on a set-top box. And it was a matter of a couple of weeks, considering the less than clever nature of set-top boxes. Piece of cake. So, end of story. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much for us. Yeah, you can just shut it off. All right, so with that, we'll just quickly open for a Q&A session. All the questions can go to Musab. Oh, yeah.
There we go. Time for one question, I guess. Yeah, you had mentioned something about the 50-cent business payment or charge for business transactions. Is that something that's in addition to the current pay rate where you have a flat fee plus a percentage, or is 50 cents for everything now?
So with the 50-cent transaction fee, it's so there are a couple of things you should know about the 50-cent transaction fee. It is for business-to-business transactions where the funding source is going to be bank or PayPal balance. So essentially, if you have two businesses that pay each other, most of the time it's going to be, instead, like you saw on the stage where they actually did an invoice, someone was expected to get an invoice and write a check. Instead of having to go through that, you can actually use adaptive payments as a business-to-business facilitator for that transaction. And in that case, we can, if it really is truly a business-to-business payment, we'll give you the 50-cent pricing. So it's nothing special that you really need to do. It's built into, we can handle it within the adaptive payment system.
One more.
For the chain payments, are those pre-configured, or is the chain sent with each transaction request? And then how many levels can the chain go? And then also, who pays the transaction fees? 3 questions.
Wow, all very good questions. So I'll start and then you jump in as you like. Basically, we allow for sender, primary receiver, secondary receivers. We don't allow a chain after that. That's the extent of the chain. Those secondary receivers can be up to 10 secondary receivers. And I think as far as the transaction fee, you have some flexibility in the transaction fee. What we've done is created the ability for one entity to say, you know what, I will pay all the transaction fees. And they'll say, don't charge anyone else a transaction fee. So for example, you as the API caller can say, you know what, when I market this to all of my customers, I'm going to tell them the transaction, I'll absorb their transaction fee. So on a $100 payment, I'll take the transaction fee. Transaction comes in, they get whatever percentage you negotiated with on, and then we'll take the transaction fee out of your portion. All of these are instructions that you put in the one pay API call. So you tell us how you want to structure it, where the money moves to, and who do you want to be the person paying the transaction fee.
We have time for one more?
No, I think that's about it.
Okay, so you know what, guys? We're going to be, there's a 15 minutes break, I think, then the next session starts. But we'll be out right outside, and feel free to have all your questions. If you have more questions for us, we'll be right outside. And if you guys want to even have like a longer conversation, we can give you your business cards. Feel free to email us.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everybody.
And by the way, we encourage all of you guys who are developers to actually go participate in the hackathon.
Yeah.
Should be pretty cool. And for those of you who want to stay for the next session, it's about adaptive accounts, which is pretty cool. It goes very nicely with adaptive payments as well.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
And I'd also like to thank the partners who were here to do the demo for us. Thank you, everybody.